Hi there. I was just getting ready for today's review by doing some research on my source material, really getting to know what I'll be playing as. I'm not weird. You're weird. They really made games about anything, huh? The mid-90s were a landmark era for video gaming, with the rise of 3D graphics in the mainstream enabling rich, sprawling worlds and ever-expanding possibilities. Some truly wild and weird concepts were born out of this experimental period, and one such curiosity was Glover. First released in 1998, Glover asks a very, very specific question. What if you were a sentient glove tasked with unfreezing your wizard owner and saving his kingdom by collecting power crystals that you turned into rubber balls to prevent them from shattering during a potion testing accident? I mean, normal Tuesday night for me. That's the premise at work. Potion go boom, wizard go freeze, crystals go bounce, other glove go evil. Game on. It honestly sets the world up as well as you could ask for, and right from the start, the game's ambiance and vibe are quite distinct. Glover himself, has a lot of personality and some expressive animation. There are little details and nice touches abound, like sitting down on a ledge instead of flailing like you're about to fall. Locations are fairly generic, a carnival, a haunted house, outer space, etc., but art direction and admittedly basic music set the tone effectively and a bit imposingly. From the menacing hub world and empty play spaces to the unsettling enemy design, the game can make you feel a little uneasy in that early 3D, vaguely liminal sort of way, and it's a fair bit creepier than its whimsical setup suggests. Speaking of its setup, the main objective is to successfully bring the ball to the end of each stage. Each world has 3 levels and a boss fight, and there's 6 worlds in total. Along the way, you're encouraged to collect garibs, strewn throughout the levels, with bonus stages unlocked for finding all of them in each world, so completionists have some added incentive here. You can transform the ball into one of 4 materials, each with different properties. The standard rubber ball is bounciest and most mobile, the bowling ball adds extra weight where needed, the ball bearing magnetizes to surfaces, and the crystal nets you double points for collectibles but shatters if you so much as look at it funny. Potions and power-ups scattered about also serve to mix up gameplay, making Glover bigger, faster, able to fly, etc., with many hidden cheats that let you deploy these power-ups at will. Why can't you do any of that? It sounds great on paper, but the game's biggest problem is unfortunately the most important element of any platformer: the controls. Simply put, Glover doesn't play very well, though it's kind of a part-time problem, and that's because there's essentially 2 separate gameplay paradigms. When wandering around by yourself, it's reasonably smooth, with a variety of moves to help you navigate an attack like a double jump and a ground pound. As just Glover, it's fun, easy, and satisfying to explore. With ball in hand, however, the game transforms and frankly feels completely different. Moving around heavily emphasizes the physics and momentum of the ball where, for example, ramps often require a rolling start to get up. Bouncing the ball essentially replaces jumping and is very sensitive to slopes, while tossing or slapping it is the only way to conquer certain gaps, platforms, and enemies. It's honestly a tricky set of mechanics to wrap your head around, and while certainly distinctive, the whole setup is kinda quirky as hell. Here's a few examples. Whether throwing the ball under duress or dealing with slippery rolling, precision is very difficult to achieve when the game demands it, and you'll likely miss your mark or fall to your death often. Your controls reverse when crossing water on the ball, to simulate how Glover is rolling the thing. But this is jarring, unwieldy, and mandatory when the ball is in a form that can float. More often than not, bouncing just doesn't respond consistently or reliably, so it's hard to trust whether a dribble will do what you expect it to. And jumping, of all things, should not be unpredictable in a platformer. These finicky controls make simple traversal needlessly challenging, and the ball gameplay is just clumsy. Which is a problem since the whole point of the game is getting the ball to the end. You cannot avoid engaging with these awkward mechanics, and it gets to the point where puzzles that require you to leave the ball somewhere and explore on your own are a bit of a relief. These issues exacerbate other frustrations throughout the game as well. Levels can be obtuse and cryptic when you're not clipping through them, and some wonky camera logic further works against the player. Boss battles compound these issues, with even simple fights poorly explained and often reduced to maddening tests of patience. Better hope you don't spawn into a one-hit kill. Worst of all, if the ball pops, smashes, or falls off the map for any reason, even if it's ricocheting after hitting an enemy you couldn't avoid, you immediately lose a life and go back to the last checkpoint, which stings considering the game's generally sluggish pace, and really stings when it's not your fault. For every moment of creativity or discovery, there's at least one equal moment of frustration or impatience, and that's often the case with games of this generation. Many early 3D games have aged poorly thanks to outdated mechanics or rough controls, and Glover is a proper example of that. The development team clearly put a lot of thought and effort into making the physics-based gameplay with the ball accurate and interesting, but it often causes friction instead of fun. It's clever and it's charming at times, but it's not particularly enjoyable to play, which is bad news for a video game. So when you put it all together, Glover gets 2.5 Gloobies out of 5. While original in concept, it struggles in execution, with the basics that every platformer needs to nail not entirely accounted for. Its clumsiness turns this novel little adventure into forgettable tedium, punctuated only by mild amusement and flashes of frustration. Glover was released for the Nintendo 64 and PC. We reviewed it on the former. There was also a version for the original PlayStation that is very different, much worse, and not considered for this score. Thanks so much for watching. Stay fresh, cheese bags. We'll catch you back here real soon.